Today I'm going to talk about my favorite game mechanism in the deck building game Arctic Scavengers. This is a game that came out a while ago and I've been wanting to play it for a long time, and I finally got the opportunity at Geekway to the West to play I believe it was a 4-player game, either 4 or 5. The game, I had a blast. It was one of the biggest surprises for me for Geekway. I was expecting good things, but deck builders are kind of hit and miss for me sometimes. I've loved Clank recently, so I kind of had renewed hope that Arctic Scavengers would be good, and I really, really enjoyed it. And it has one of the most fun mechanisms and elements in any game that I played in a long time, and that is, and I hope I'm naming this correctly, the brawl mechanism that happens at the end of pretty much every round of the game. I think we played about maybe 15 rounds, and for the first few rounds there's no brawl. And then you get to, I think, the 3rd round, and a brawl, you know a brawl is going to happen at the end of the round. The theme of the game is you're kind of in a post-apocalyptic snowbound scenario, and you're building up your little tribe, and sometimes you have to fight other tribes or other people in this encampment. And so in Arctic Scavengers, you play out your turn, so you play cards as you wish to gain, to kind of scavenge for scraps, to acquire new members of your tribe, things like that. And then at the end of your turn, you don't discard the rest of your hand. Rather, you keep any cards that you want that you haven't played in your hand, and you declare them to all players. You say, okay guys, I have three cards left in hand that I'm going to be brawling with. As soon as every player has taken their turn that round and revealed how many cards they're going to brawl with, players reveal those cards, and there's an icon on each of those cards that, and some cards, not on all cards, that shows how much strength you have in the brawl. So I might have 2 cards, but one of them might have a strength of 4, and one of them might have a strength of 0, so my brawl strength will be 4. And every player reveals that. The player with the greatest strength wins the brawl, and they draw the top card of, I forget what deck it's called, but it's a deck that's solely associated with the brawl mechanism. You draw the top card of that deck. And usually, well, almost always, it's a very powerful card. You want to get those cards. They're always very good. This is a really, really clever mechanism here. A, it's just fun to have that level of thematic interaction with the other players at the end of each round. But 2, it adds some really interesting choices to the game, because during your turn, you're deciding, okay, am I going to use these cards right now in this moment for things that I can get for sure? Or am I going to hold them back for a pretty high risk-reward scenario where I don't know if I'm going to win this brawl or not? The second interesting decision on that is the bluffing element, because you might have some cards that maybe, like, you know, in a deck building game, you're spending cards to buy other cards. You're spending icons on these cards to buy cards. And sometimes maybe something costs 2 that you really want, but you have 4 of that resource in hand. And so you might spend 2 to get that card. And I guess you could just spend, in Arctic Scavengers, you can do more than one buy. So you could buy another card of that type. Or you can hold back those cards as a bluff. Like maybe they add no strength to your brawl strength, but you can hold them back and bluff to other players, make other players think that you're going all in on this brawl and that they don't have a chance, even though you have very little strength for that brawl. It's a really, really interesting bluffing mechanism. In the game I played, I loved the brawl mechanism so much that I did very little on hardly any of my turns, and I just held back a ton of cards for the brawl. And every card I acquired was to make my brawl strength better and bigger. And I won some, I lost some. That was my choice. It is that risk and reward, but I had a ton of fun with it either way. So I really, really like this mechanism of, in a deck building game, of the cards that you don't play, having them mean something for the game, whether it's thematically or mechanically or both, as it is in Arctic Scavengers. If you have a favorite mechanism in a deck building game where the things that you have left over actually mean something, or I guess in any game where you're using a bunch of stuff on one turn and exhausting all that stuff and then holding back some other things. I know Orleans does it in a really interesting way, where you don't have to use all of the tokens that you draw from your bag every turn. You can hold on to them for a future turn. I really like that as well. But I'd love to hear about that in the comments, or if you have a favorite mechanism in Arctic Scavengers or in any of the many expansions that come with the game. I'd love to hear about that as well. Thanks.